Welcome to the Sleeping Almanac. Before the lamp is lit, one small thing. If these stories carry you to sleep, subscribe now while your eyes are still open, and tomorrow night's tale will be waiting for you. A like helps other tired souls find this room. That is all. Let's light the lamp together now. The lamp is lit again. The same small flame as last night. In the same quiet room at the edge of the world. The storyteller is already here. She was here before you arrived. She will stay until you sleep. There's a chair for you. There's a blanket. The night outside is doing all of its slow, dark work, and none of it is yours to carry until morning. The storyteller opens the old book and turns past the tales already told to a page that waits for tonight. Tonight, she says softly, we go to a castle wrapped in roses, where a spindle hums at the top of a winding stair, and a princess called Briar Rose, and her cooks, and her horses, and the very fire on her hearth, all lie down together to sleep for 100 years. And there's no hurry at all as she begins. Settle in now. Let the chair hold you, and let the blanket be heavy in the good way, the way snow is heavy on a roof that has nothing to do until spring. Tonight of all nights, you're in the right room, because tonight's tale is about sleep itself, the deepest and safest sleep in any storybook, and no one in this story is hurt by it, and no one in this room will be either. Close your eyes if they want to close. You do not have to watch. You do not have to follow every word, and you do not have to remember any of it in the morning. This story has been finding its own way through the dark for 300 years. It does not need your help. It only needs your company, and it will keep yours in return all the way down. And if you drift, drift. The tale will go on without you, quietly, past the roses and up the stair, and it will not mind at all. In this story, falling asleep before the ending is not missing the point. It is joining in. Chapter 1. The Wish by the Water. Long ago, and far from here, there was a kingdom that had nearly everything. It was a green country of low hills and patient rivers, with a deep wood along its northern edge and a coast of pale sand in the south that nobody important had ever bothered to fight over. The barley grew. The bees did well. The roads were safe enough that Tinker slept beside them with their boots off. It was the kind of kingdom that map makers tended to draw a little larger than it really was, simply because they had been happy there. In the middle of that country, on a hill above a river, stood a castle with round towers and a roof of blue slate. And in the castle lived a king and a queen who were, by every measure a kingdom keeps, good at their work. The king was fair in his judgments and slow in his tempers. The queen remembered the names of the gardener's children. When they rode out together, people did not bow because they had to. They looked up from the hay and waved. And yet, in the quietest room of that castle, there was a sorrow, the small private kind, the kind that even kings and queens must carry the same as anyone. They had no child. Every day they said to one another, "Ah, if only we had a child." The old book tells it exactly that way, every day, and if you have ever wished for one thing for years together, you will know how a wish like that wears a path in a person, the way sheep wear a path across a hillside, gently, by going the same way every day. The queen did her wishing by the water. Below the castle garden there was a pool, fed by a spring, ringed with flat warm stones, and the queen went there in the summer evenings to bathe and to be nobody in particular for an hour. The water was clear as good glass. Dragonflies stitched back and forth across it, and the queen would float there in the low gold light, listening to the castle bells above her and the frogs in the reeds around her, and she would let her one wish rest on the surface of the water beside her like a leaf. And one evening, out of the reeds, a frog came swimming. It was a very ordinary frog to look at, green as a bottle, with those calm gold eyes frogs keep, that seemed to have watched the world since before there were words for it. It swam a slow circle around the queen, in no hurry, the way everything in this story is in no hurry, and then it rested its small hands on a warm flat stone, and it spoke. "Your wish shall be fulfilled," said the frog. "Before a year has gone by, you shall bring a daughter into the world." That was all. No bargain, no conditions, no riddle to solve by midnight. Some gifts in old stories come with strings, but this one came the way the best things come, freely, out of still water, at the end of an ordinary day. The queen held very still, the way you hold still when a wild thing has chosen to trust you. And by the time she'd found any words at all, the frog had slipped off its stone, made one soft ring on the surface of the pool, and gone down into the dark green quiet to be a frog again. The queen walked back up to the castle barefoot, carrying her shoes. She told no one at first. A promise from a frog is a delicate thing to explain at court, but she carried it inside her all that autumn, like a coal carried in a clay pot, warming her from a place no weather could reach. And when the winter came, she found she was not afraid of it. And when the spring came, the frog's word came true. A daughter was born in the season when the roses first open, and the old book says she was so beautiful that the king could not contain himself for joy. That is worth pausing on, says the storyteller, turning the page slowly. Not that she was beautiful. All babies are beautiful, and every parent in every kingdom knows their own is the most beautiful ever managed. No, the part worth keeping is the king, a grown and sensible man, a man who weighed grain taxes and settled boundary disputes, walking the corridors of his castle at all hours with his sleeping daughter against his shoulder, unable to contain himself for joy. Joy like that has to go somewhere. And in kings, joy usually becomes a feast. Chapter 2. The Feast of the Golden Plates. The feast the king ordered was the greatest that kingdom had ever seen, and the preparing of it took the whole first summer of the little princess's life. The castle kitchens woke before the birds did, those weeks. Carts came up the river road from every corner of the country, carts of pears and honeycomb, of cheeses wrapped in nettle leaves, of fish packed in river ice, of small brown mountain plums that taste better than their looks. The bakers built loaves the size of cradle blankets. The cellarmen rolled barrels up the ramps as gently as if the barrels were asleep. In the courtyard, long tables went up on trestles, and awnings of striped linen over them, and the castle children ran underneath the tables while they still could, because a table before the feast belongs to the children, as everyone knows. The king did not only invite his family, and the neighboring kings, and the friends of the house. He invited the whole business of the kingdom, the millers and the ferrymen, and the beekeepers, because joy, as we said, has to go somewhere, and his had decided to go everywhere. And he invited the wise women. Every old kingdom in those days had its wise women. They lived at the edges of things, at the ends of lanes, in cottages with herbs drying from the rafters, and they walked between the villages in all weathers with their baskets on their arms. They knew which root eased a fever and which tea eased a grief. They were midwives and menders and rememberers. And it was the custom, when a child was born to the crown, to ask them to the christening feast, so that each might give the child a gift, and the gifts of the wise women were not silver cups. They were gifts that went in deeper than that, and stayed. Now, in that kingdom, there were 13 wise women. But the king, counting out his treasury with the steward, found that he had only 12 golden plates for them to eat from. 12 plates of gold, each one old as the castle itself, each one polished until it held the whole feast, upside down in miniature, on its face. Custom said the wise women must eat from gold, and there was no time to have a 13th made, and no one, it seems, was brave enough or awake enough to suggest that a wise woman might rather be welcomed on pewter than left home for the sake of a plate. So one of them was not invited. The old book does not make a villain of the king here, and neither will the storyteller. It was not cruelty. It was the other thing, the more common thing, the thing that causes most of the sorrow there is. It was carelessness. A tired man, a long list, a missing plate, a name quietly left off the bottom. Remember the plates, says the storyteller, holding the page a moment. Small things steer big stories. A plate, a spindle, a rose. The christening itself came first, in the bright middle of the morning, in the castle chapel with its windows of deep blue glass. The whole procession wound in from the courtyard to the sound of the bells, and the bells of that castle had been cast, generations back, a little deeper in tone than most, so that even their gladdest ringing sounded half asleep. The princess was carried in on a christening pillow that 12 grandmothers of the town had spent the summer embroidering. Snowdrops and wrens, and, down in one corner, at the queen's own quiet request, one small green frog, stitched where the priest would not especially notice it. She was named at the font, and the water in the font had been carried up that morning from the spring below the garden, for the queen would have no other water. And if you think on that a moment, you will see the whole shape of her mother's heart. As for the name itself, the old book never tells it. The story had already set aside a truer name for her, one still growing quietly in the garden at that very hour, and so it let the first name go unrecorded, the way a river lets go of a leaf. The king held his daughter through the whole of the blessing and did not drop her, though the old book seems privately to have had its doubts about him. The queen wept the correct amount, and when the blessing was done, the bells let themselves go entirely, and the chapel doors were thrown open, and the procession poured back out into the sunlight, toward the smell of the roast and the long bright tables, a good deal faster than it had gone in. The feast itself was everything a feast should be. It began at noon and meant to end at midnight, and the tables ran the whole length of the courtyard, and the striped awnings breathed in the warm wind like sails. There was music from a gallery, fiddles and flutes taking turns, and below it the deep, happy sound of a few hundred people, all talking at once about nothing in particular. The roast turned on its spit. The fountain in the courtyard center ran with cider, briefly, until the bees found out. And at the high table, in a cradle of carved oak, the princess slept through nearly all of it, which everyone agreed showed excellent judgment. The 12 wise women sat in the places of honor, each before her golden plate. They had come in from their lanes and their cottages in their good gray cloaks, and they sat together like a row of doves on a ridgepole, taking everything in with bright, quiet eyes. They ate well. Wise women always eat well at feasts. It is one of the perquisites of wisdom. And as the afternoon leaned into evening, and the shadows of the tower stretched long and soft across the courtyard, and the candles came out on the tables like the first stars, a hush went around, the good kind of hush, the kind that gathers before a gift. The wise women rose, one by one, and went to the cradle. Chapter 3. The Gifts of the Wise Women. There was no wand waving, no flash, no thunder. That is not how wise women work. A gift from a wise woman looks, from the outside, like almost nothing at all. An old woman bends over a cradle. A word is said, low, once. A hand is held still a moment above a small sleeping chest, the way you hold a hand over new bread to feel the warmth coming up. That is the whole of the ceremony. The magic is in the choosing, and wise women choose the way rivers cut valleys, slowly and for good. The first of the wise women bent over the cradle and looked a long moment at the sleeping child and gave her virtue. Not the stiff kind that stands in corners disapproving of things, the living kind, the kind that means a person grows up straight of heart, the way a good tree grows straight of trunk, without ever seeming to work at it. A child with that gift, the wise woman knew, would tell the truth even when the truth was inconvenient, and keep her promises even to servants, and be, in the deep quiet middle of herself, sound. It is the least glittering of all the gifts, and the one the others rest on, which is why it was given first. The second gave her beauty, and gave it sensibly, the way wise women do, not the brittle kind that must be guarded like a jewel and makes its owner anxious, the warm kind, the kind that is mostly a way of looking at people as though they are welcome. Faces like that do not stop rooms, they ease them. The third gave her riches, and with the riches, so the storyteller has always believed, a light hand on them. For what the old book means by riches is not golden boxes. It means enough, and to spare, and the ease of heart that comes of never needing to count anything twice. The fourth gave her kindness, the practical sort, the sort that notices the person at the edge of the room. The fourth wise woman had spent a long life at the edges of rooms herself, and she gave this gift slowly, with both hands resting on the cradle rail, in the manner of someone who knows exactly what it costs to be without it. The fifth gave her a clear singing voice, true as a blackbird's at evening, the kind of voice that makes even a work song sound like good news. And the tellers swear that when this gift went in, the sleeping baby sighed, one small musical sigh, perfectly in tune, and up in the gallery every fiddler leaned over the rail at once to hear it, like swallows on a wire. The sixth gave her grace in the dance, and in walking, and in sitting still, which is the rarest of the three. She gave it, the tellers say, with one small turning of her brown wrist in the candlelight, the smallest dance ever danced in that kingdom. And all down the long tables, the candle flames bowed together, once, like partners at the start of the music. The seventh gave her wit, quickness of mind, the gift of seeing to the bottom of a question while others are still admiring its surface. The seventh wise woman was the youngest of the 13, as the ages of wise women are reckoned, and there was a smile folded away somewhere inside her gift, because wit without warmth is only cleverness, and she was careful about the difference. The eighth gave her patience to go with the wit, so the quickness would never make her sharp. That pairing was no accident. Wise women watch what the others give, and mend as they go, the way good cooks season a soup between them. And the eighth had stood all evening at the seventh shoulder with her own gift ready, waiting her turn without the least sign of hurry, which was of course the gift itself, already at work in the room. The ninth gave her the love of books, and everything that hides inside that gift, the long afternoons, the lamplit evenings, The 1,000 lives lived safely from a window seat. The 9th wise woman was known in her own village for reading as she walked the lanes, trusting her feet to manage the puddles on their own. And in 40 years of it, her feet had never once betrayed her. The 10th gave her green fingers so that gardens would do well for her all her life, and roses especially, roses above everything. The old book might have warned us there, if the old book were the warning kind. The 10th wise woman smelled of rosemary and turned earth, and before she gave her gift, she paused to tuck the blanket closer around the child, not tenderly, or not only tenderly, but the way a gardener firms the soil around something newly planted with 2 fingers, expecting great things. The 11th gave her good sleep. Yes, says the storyteller, looking up, even then, even before everything that was to come. The 11th wise woman bent over the cradle and gave the princess the gift of deep, easy, untroubled sleep, all her life long, the gift you would choose first if you were wise, the gift this whole room is built around. And the old book, which winks more often than people notice, says nothing at all about whether that wise woman, later, felt her gift had been taken rather too seriously. 11 gifts, given into the cradle like 11 candles lit one from another. And the 12th wise woman had just stepped forward and had just opened her mouth to speak when the doors of the courtyard swung open, both at once, hard enough to make the candle flames lie down. Chapter 4. The 13th Wish and the 12th. The 13th wise woman had come to the feast after all. She came up the length of the courtyard between the long tables, and the music did not so much stop as forget itself, fiddle by fiddle, and the happy noise of a few hundred people folded away like linen. She was not terrible to look at. The old book does not paint her with claws or shadows, and the storyteller will not either. She looked like what she was, an old woman in a gray cloak who had sat alone that whole bright day in a cottage at the end of a lane, listening to the far-off music of a feast she had not been asked to. And if you have ever, even once, been left out of something, and everyone has, then you know the exact weather inside her as she walked. It is a cold weather, and it rains a long time. Hurt has a way of speaking, in a room where joy has been careless, and it spoke now. She did not greet the king, she did not look at the plates. She went straight to the cradle, and she said, loudly, so that no one in that courtyard could miss a word, that in her 15th year, the princess should prick herself on a spindle. And then she said, what should follow the prick of that spindle? And it was the coldest word there is, the one word that has no business anywhere near a cradle, and the storyteller sees no reason to warm this quiet room by repeating it. You know the word, let it lie. And without waiting for any answer, the 13th wise woman turned and walked back down the whole hushed length of the courtyard, and was gone into the evening before anyone remembered how to move. For a moment, nothing. The candles righting themselves, a drop spoon. Somewhere at a far table, a child asking a question and being softly hushed. Then every eye in that courtyard went to the cradle where the princess slept on, because she was 3 months old, and the world had not yet told her it could be otherwise, and every heart in that courtyard broke a little at once, which makes a sound, strangely, very like silence. But the 12th wise woman had never given her gift. She stepped up to the cradle now, small and gray and steady, and she raised her hand, and the whole feast held its breath. I cannot undo the words, she said, and her voice was kind and level. the voice of someone telling you the truth because you deserve it. A wish spoken over a cradle is spoken. That is old law, older than I am, and I cannot lift it, but I can bend it. And she bent it. The princess shall indeed prick her finger on a spindle in her 15th year, she said, but she shall not die of it. She shall fall instead into a deep sleep, and the sleep shall last 100 years, and at the end of the 100 years she shall wake, whole and well, and no older than the morning she closed her eyes. That is the whole of my gift, she said, and it is enough. Sleep instead of sorrow, a long night instead of no morning, and a waking at the end of it, that I promise this house as sure as dawn. She touched the cradle rail once, lightly, the way you touch wood for luck, and she went back to her place, and after a while, because the world is resilient and feasts are stubborn, the music found itself again, quietly at first. The storyteller closes her hand gently over the page. Hold on to the 12th wise woman's promise, she says, the way the king and queen learned to hold it. You may keep it under your pillow all the rest of this night. Everything that follows in this tale, the spindle, the tower, the long stillness, all of it happens inside that promise, the way a sleeper is inside a house. This is a story about a rest, not an ending. Nothing in it will be lost. Everything in it will wake. And now, says the storyteller, the years may pass, and they do, the way years pass in a happy kingdom, which is to say, like water under a bridge you trust. Chapter 5. The Kingdom Without Spindles. The king, of course, did the thing that frightened fathers do. He tried to build a wall around tomorrow. The very morning after the feast, while the trestle tables were still coming down, he made a law, and the law said this: every spindle in the kingdom shall be burned. Now a spindle, for those of you who have only ever met cloth after it is finished, was a small wooden thing, no longer than your forearm, shaped like a top on a stick, that spun and dropped and twisted loose wool into thread. There was one in every cottage in those days, usually several, the way there are spoons. The whole kingdom's shirts and sheets and sails began on somebody's spindle. To burn them all was not a small thing to ask. It was like asking a kingdom to give up its needles, or its ladles, or its second verse of every song. The kingdom did it anyway, because the people had all heard, by then, what had been said over the cradle, and the princess belonged to all of them, the way a kingdom's child does. So the spindles came in. They came in cartloads and basketfuls, down the river road, over the bridges, spindles of ash wood and pear wood, plain ones and carved ones, grandmother's spindles worn silky by 50 years of thread. The carts creaked into the castle yard all that autumn, like carts bringing in a strange harvest. And on a still gray day at the edge of winter, they were burned, all together, in the great yard, in a fire that smelled, they say, of 50,000 hearths, and the people stood around it in their winter cloaks, quiet, the way people stand at the edge of any large change. It was not a sad fire, quite. Every spindle on it was a small act of love for one sleeping child. But the wise women, who stood together at the edge of the crowd in their gray cloaks, watched the sparks go up with unreadable eyes, because wise women know a thing that frightened kings forget, which is that what is written finds a way, and walls around tomorrow have never yet kept out a single sunrise. Still, the fire burned down, and the winter came and went, and no harm arrived, and none the next year either, and slowly the kingdom learned to breathe again. They spun their thread beyond the borders after that, and traded barley for it, and if cloth was a little dearer in that country than elsewhere, no one begrudged it. In time the whole matter softened into custom, the way frights do when nothing feeds them. Children grew up in that kingdom, never having seen a spindle in their lives. That will matter later. The storyteller mentions it the way you set a key on a table, without comment. And the princess grew. She grew the way the wise women had promised she would, gift by gift, the way a garden comes on, bed by bed, over a long, slow summer. The virtue came up first, as virtue does, in small ways, and owned up mischief and kept promises. The kindness bloomed at about the age of 4, when she began saving the ends of loaves for the stable's oldest pony. The singing voice arrived at 6, unmistakably, in the middle of a winter service, rising clean above the congregation like the one bird awake in a snowy wood, and the whole cold church turned warm for hearing it. The books found her at 8, or she found them, and after that there was never any real separating the two. The wit and the patience grew up braided together, as the 8th wise woman intended, so that she became the kind of girl who could untangle a quarrel between 2 stable hands and have both of them, thinking it had been their own idea, to laugh. The gardens obeyed her 10th gift, and her roses in particular were the envy of the county, climbing roses, red and white, that took the south wall of the castle a little more thoroughly every June. And the 11th gift held. Every night of her childhood, all through that castle small alarms, through storms and lost teeth and the ordinary griefs of growing, the princess slept easily and deeply and woke glad, and the queen would stand sometimes in the doorway with a candle, watching her daughter sleep, and think, with a small catch under her ribs, of a gray-cloaked woman's level voice saying, awaking at the end of it, that I promised this house, as sure as dawn. 14 years went by that way. 14 years of harvests and frosts, of bonfire nights and mended fences, of the princess growing taller than her mother and learning the names of everything in the wood at the kingdom's northern edge. The old fright faded until it was only a story the maids told new maids in the way of houses. The king himself could go whole seasons now without thinking of it. But the old book turns its pages whether or not anyone is watching. And in the summer of her 15th year, there came a bright, wide open morning when the king and the queen rode out early to the far side of the kingdom on some errand of weddings or boundaries, and were not to be home until the following day. And the princess, for the first time in all her 15 years, had the whole castle to herself. Chapter 6. The Tower Room. A castle with everyone busy elsewhere is one of the finest playgrounds ever built, at any age, and 15 is not too old for it. 15 is exactly old enough to enjoy it properly. The princess spent that whole bright morning going wherever she pleased. She went down first to the kitchens, where the cook let her taste the plum preserve that was meant for Sunday, and the kitchen boy showed her a whistle he had carved, and got flour on her sleeve, and was not sorry. She went along the storerooms, bins of apples and sand, crocks of honey, the cool cellar smell of stone doing its patient work. She looked into the laundry, all steam and lavender water and wide white sheets, on lines like a ship's rigging, and the laundry women sang the song about the miller's daughter, and she sang the 3rd verse with them, and her 5th gift turned that steamy room into somewhere you would pay to stand. She wandered the long gallery where her ancestors hung in their frames, and made faces at the sternest of them, respectfully. She visited the stables, and gave the oldest pony, who was very old indeed now, the end of a loaf she had saved out of habit since she was 4. She climbed to the battlements and walked the whole circuit of the walls with the wind in her sleeves, looking out over the kingdom, the river with its barges, the patchwork of barley going gold, the deep wood to the north like a green sea, and everything she could see from up there was quietly, unknowingly, saying goodbye to her for a while, and neither she nor the kingdom knew it. And then, in the drowsy early afternoon, when the castle was at its quietest, she found the stair she had never climbed. It was in the oldest corner of the castle, past a door she had always assumed was a cupboard. Behind it, a narrow winding stair went up and up inside a tower wall, each step worn into a smile by feet that had climbed it long before her grandfather's grandfather. Arrow-slit windows let in coins of light that slid over her as she climbed. The air grew older as she went, and warmer and stiller, and it smelled of dust and sun on stone, the exact smell of a long afternoon with nothing that must be done in it. The stair turned and ended at a little door. In the lock of the little door sat a rusty key, and from beyond the door came a sound she had never in her life heard before. A small, busy, contented sound. A whirring, a soft clatter and hum, round and round, like a wooden bee, like a cartwheel dreaming, like the purring of some patient wooden cat. She turned the key. It complained sweetly and gave way. The door swung open on a little round room at the very top of the tower, whitewashed, warm with afternoon sun, and in the middle of the room, in a slant of gold light full of drifting dust motes, sat an old woman with a spindle, busily spinning her flax. "Good day, old mother," said the princess, because her 4th gift had made her courteous to her bones. "What are you doing?" "I am spinning," said the old woman, and nodded her head and did not stop. "The old book," says the storyteller gently, "holds no grudge against this old woman, and you need hold none either. She was no one wicked in disguise. She was only an old woman who lived at the top of an old tower, so far above the daily business of the kingdom that the great spindle burning of 15 years before had come and gone beneath her notice entirely, the way a flood can pass through a valley and never trouble the high pastures at all. She had her flax, and her window, and her work, and she was, in the whole kingdom, the last person still doing it." The princess came closer, drawn the way we are all drawn to any small skilled thing being done well. The thread ran through the old woman's fingers as if it were alive. The spindle turned and dropped, and the loose gray cloud of flax became, between her hands, a thin, strong, even thread, which is a plain kind of magic, but a real one. The oldest trick there is, disorder in at one end, and usefulness out at the other. "And what sort of thing is this," said the princess, "that rattles round so merrily?" And she reached out her hand, as anyone would, as you would, and she took hold of the spindle. It hardly hurt at all. That is the truth of it, and the storyteller is glad to report it. The lightest touch, the smallest bead of red on one fingertip, no worse than a rose thorn takes in passing, and the princess said, oh, more in surprise than anything. And the wish, the old one, the bent one, the one that had waited 15 patient years in the grain of things, woke and did exactly what the 12th wise woman had promised, and not one thing more. Sleep came for her like a warm sea. It came up so fast and so gently that she never even felt afraid. Her eyes went heavy, the way your eyes are heavy now. The spinning room, the gold light, the drifting motes, all of it softened at the edges like something seen through honey water. There happened to be a bed there in the tower room, a plain old bed with a faded coverlet, standing against the curve of the wall as though it had been waiting there for years. And perhaps it had, for the old book says nothing at all about how it came to be in the right place at the right hour, and wise women, as we know, mend as they go. The princess lay down on it, because lying down suddenly seemed the most natural idea in the world, and she thought, I will close my eyes for one moment only, which is what every sleeper in every land has thought, at the sweet steep edge of it, since sleeping began. And she closed her eyes, and the 100 years began. Chapter 7. The castle falls asleep. Now comes the part of the tale that this room was made to tell, because the sleep did not stop with the princess. The old wish had been aimed at one girl, but the 12th wise woman had bent it, and a bent thing spreads its weight in new directions, and what the wish became, in the end, was not a blow but a blanket, and the blanket came down over the whole castle, gently, evenly, corner to corner, the way snow comes down on a field in the night, forgetting nothing, refusing no one. The sleep began in the tower room and fell through the castle like slow warm rain. The king and the queen, who had come home early, just that hour, and were standing in the great hall, still in their traveling cloaks, asking after their daughter, fell asleep where they stood, and settled together onto the bench by the long table, her head finding his shoulder by an instinct older than crowns, and their two crowns tilted toward one another like the heads of drowsy children. The whole court went with them. The chamberlain slept upright against a pillar with his staff of office in the crook of his arm like a bedtime toy. The ladies in the solar slept over their embroidery. Needles paused in the exact middle of stitches, threads of blue and gold, hanging quiet as the ropes of stopped bells. The steward slept over his ledger, his pen resting in the valley of the open page, and the ink at its tip dried slowly into one small permanent star. The sleep went along the corridors and down the back stairs the way evening goes through a wood, without missing one small thing. In the laundry, the wide white sheets stopped swaying on their lines, all together, like a ship taking in its sails, and the laundry women slept standing among them, and the one who had been singing, the same song about the miller's daughter, fell asleep between one verse and the next, with the low note still in her mouth, so that the song simply paused, half sung, warm, kept, the way bread is kept under a cloth. Down the long gallery, the painted ancestors in their frames left off whatever it is that portraits do that is almost watching, and did something quieter still. In the cellars, the barrels settled deeper into their slow dark arithmetic, and the honey stood gold in its crocks, entirely unbothered. Honey being the one thing in any castle that already knows how to wait 100 years without instruction. And in the chapel tower, the bell had been about to strike the hour. The rope was drawn down in the bell ringer's two hands, and the great bell was leaned all the way back at the top of its swing, gathering its one deep note. The sleep gathered rope and ringer and bell together, gently, and the bell stayed leaned, and the note stayed gathered, unstruck, at the top of the tower, like a breath held gladly, and the hour the bell never rang that afternoon did not go anywhere. It waited, the way everything in that house now waited, becoming, year by year, the most patient hour any clock in any kingdom has ever kept. Down in the yard, the guards slept at the gate, leaning on their spears, the way tired haymakers lean on rakes at evening. The gatekeeper slept with his hand on the great iron ring of the door. The blacksmith slept mid-swing, and the hammer, which should have fallen, did not fall. It only leaned back against his shoulder, patient, as if it too had been waiting for years for permission to rest. In the stables, the horses went down into sleep on their feet, in that way horses have, hip-cocked, heads lowering by inches, and the stable cat folded shut on the warm beam above them. The hounds in the yard turned their circles once, twice, and lay down in the shapes hounds have slept in since the world was young, nose under tail, and were still. The doves on the roof put their heads beneath their wings, all together, a whole ridgeline of gray going soft and slept. And the flies on the wall slept. The old book says so, exactly that, and the storyteller has always loved it best, of all the lines in this tale, the flies on the wall, because whoever first told this story, a very long time ago, in some firelit room, understood the thing this whole season is built on, which is that no sleep is really complete, no rest is truly deep, until even the smallest, busiest, most restless scrap of life in the house has been gathered in and tucked up to. Nothing was too small for this blanket. Nothing was left out of it. The fly on the wall of the great hall stopped its fretful walking and slept where it stood, a tiny dark punctuation mark on the white plaster, and the spider in the corner of the kitchen window slept at the center of her wheel, which was the one wheel in the kingdom the king had never thought to burn. In the kitchen, the great fire itself grew drowsy. The flames stopped leaping. They swayed slower and slower, like dancers at the end of the last dance of the night, and then they simply stood, upright and golden and still, painted on the air, warm to look at and fast asleep. The fire slept. The roast above it stopped its crackling in the middle of a crackle. The pot stopped in the middle of a bubble, and the bubble, half risen, decided it could wait a century, and did. The cook had been, at that exact moment, in the middle of a scolding. The kitchen boy, the same one who had shown the princess his whistle that very morning, had done something with the gravy that history does not record, and the cook's hand was raised, and the boy's ear was waiting, and the whole small thunderstorm of it was just about to break when the sleep came into the kitchen, like the smell of rain, and the cook's eyes closed where he stood, hand still lifted, and the boy's eyes closed where he cowered, ear still waiting, and the storm was postponed, in its entirety, for 100 years. The scullery maid slept over the black hen she was plucking, her fingers full of feathers, and one loose feather that had just left her hand stayed exactly where it was, resting on the air itself, halfway to the floor, asleep. And outside, the wind lay down. That is how the old book finishes it, and no teller in 300 years has improved on the order of it. The wind lay down in the courtyard like a dog before the fire, and on all the trees before the castle, not one leaf stirred, not one. And the banner on the highest tower, which had rippled without a single pause for as long as anyone living could remember, hung still at last in long soft folds, like a sleeve at rest. Silence then. But listen, says the storyteller, leaning close, because this matters more than anything else tonight. It was not an empty silence. It was a full one. It was not the silence of a house where something has ended. It was the silence of a house where everything is, at last and all at once, resting, the deepest afternoon hush ever gathered under one roof, king and cook, horse and hound, fire and fly, every heart in the place beating on, slow and safe and sure, once a minute, once an hour, keeping the long appointment, the whole castle sleeping, and at the top of it, in the little round room, in the slant of gold light, where the dust motes now hung as still as tiny planets, the princess, sleeping soundest of all, one small red bead on her fingertip already healed, her breathing so soft and so even that it would not have troubled that floating feather in the kitchen, and on her face, all the old book cares to tell us, an expression of perfect peace, as of one who knows, even that deep down, that she has been promised a morning. Chapter 8. The Hedge of Briars. Around the sleeping castle the roses woke. They were her roses, the red and white climbing roses of her 10th gift, the ones that had taken the south wall a little more thoroughly every June, with no gardener awake to trim them, and something older than gardening now moving in their sap. They began to grow as roses have never grown before or since. They came up out of the garden beds and crossed the paths. They took the south wall in a season and the east wall by the following spring. They wove themselves through the gates and along the battlements, over the stables, up the towers, thickening year by year, into a hedge, and the hedge climbed until, in time, it covered the whole castle entirely, walls and roofs and chimneys, and closed at last over the highest tower, over the still banner itself, so that not even the flag on the roof could be seen, and there was nothing on that hill anymore to look at but an enormous mound of briars, dark green in summer, bare and bristling in winter, and every June, all over, drowsy with 100,000 roses. And it was not a grim growing. That is worth saying twice, because a wall of thorns sounds like a fearful thing, and this one never was. Every June, the whole vast hedge came into flower at once, root to rooftop, red and white together, and for a month the hill stood in the middle of that green country like one enormous rose with a castle for its heart, and travelers went a day out of their way just to pass downwind of it. Then the petals let go, as petals do, and came down for weeks in a soft red and white snow, drifting against the gates, sifting in at the high windows that had stood open since that summer afternoon, settling on the shoulders of the sleeping guards, on the king's crown, on the cook's raised arm, and the flank of the oldest hound, until, summer by summer, the floors of that castle lay carpeted in 100 years of roses, and the whole sleeping house, they say, smelled faintly of them all year long, even under snow. And every autumn the hedge drew itself in a little closer, the way a sleeper draws in a blanket, and every winter it stood bare and patient, holding the shape of the castle inside it like a thought it was keeping warm, and every spring it put out new green, and grew, and held on. The kingdom around it did what kingdoms do. It went on. The princess's people grieved a while, and hoped a while, and the 12th wise woman's promise was told and retold in every cottage until everyone knew the terms of it by heart. 100 years, a waking at the end, sure as dawn. The kingdom passed to a cousin who ruled it gently from another hill, and the farms went on being farmed, and the river went on carrying its barges past the briar-covered hill, and the bargemen tipped their caps to it as they passed, without quite knowing why, the way you lower your voice near a sleeping child. And the story itself settled over the country like a second hedge, softer than the first. Grandmothers told it at bedtimes, shepherds told it on hillsides, and somewhere in those years, nobody knows in whose kitchen or on whose road, the sleeping princess was given the name her own parents never gave her, the name the roses gave her, Briar Rose. That is who she became while she slept. In the tale, as the whole world learned to tell it, the girl and the hedge grew together into one name, and the storyteller confesses she has always found that beautiful, that a person could be named, in her absence, by the thing that grew up to keep her safe. From time to time, of course, young men came. They came from far countries, princes and younger sons, having heard of the beautiful Briar Rose asleep behind the roses, and they came with axes and good intentions, and they tried the hedge. The hedge did not let them through. The old book is stern about this part, and the winter tellers used to make it sterner still for the pleasure of the children under the blankets. But there has always been a gentler telling too, handed down alongside the other, and the gentler telling is the one this room keeps, and at this hour it is also the truer one. The hedge did not fight anyone. It simply held them away. A young man would set to with his axe at sunrise, proud as a new blade, and the briars would lean back from every stroke without hurry, and braid themselves quietly shut again, behind their own leaves, 2 green stems for every cut one, and by noon he would find that all his morning's work had gained him no more ground than the length of his own arm, and that a rose was blooming, calmly, on the very branch he had cut first. Here and there, they say, the briars would take an axe from a tired hand altogether, gently, the way a grandmother takes a sharp thing from a child who is nearly asleep, and lift it up into the thorns out of harm's way, and by the following June even the axes wore roses, and one by one, scratched and baffled, and strangely calmed, the way a person is calm after arguing all day with the sea. The young men gathered up their ropes and ladders and rode home, and grew old, telling the story themselves by their own fires. There is a hedge in that country that cannot be quarreled with, they would say. Something is sleeping behind it, and the hedge will open when the sleeping is done, and not 1 hour before. For the hedge was not cruel, it was faithful. It was doing what everything else in this tale does, which is to keep a promise, and the promise had a date on it, and the date was not yet. So the wise learned to leave the hill alone. The hedge stood. The seasons went over it, snow and rose, 100 of each. The story traveled further and grew softer at the edges, the way stories do, until in the furthest countries they doubted there was any castle under there at all. And inside, all that time, the castle slept on and lost nothing. The fire stood golden in the kitchen, not 1 degree cooler. The feather hung on the air, not 1 inch fallen. The ink star sat on the steward's page, keeping the accounts of a quiet century. The king and queen leaned together on their bench, crowns touching, and their sleeping faces, year by year, let go of the last of their old fright, until they wore the same expression as their daughter in the tower, which was peace. Once a minute, once an hour, every heart in the place beat on, keeping the long appointment, and the 100 years, which seemed so long to us and were nothing at all to the sleepers, turned like a great slow wheel toward their final morning. Chapter 9. 100 Years of Quiet. But wait, says the storyteller, turning back 1 page, as if she has remembered something too good to leave. Before the wheel comes round, let us do what almost no teller of this tale ever takes the time to do. Let us stay a while inside the 100 years. Everyone hurries through them, a sentence, and on to the prince. But you and I are in no hurry at all, and a century of perfect sleep deserves better than a sentence. And besides, It is the most restful place in all the old book, and we are here to rest. So, what is it like inside 100 years of quiet? It is like this. In the first years, the swallows still knew the castle and came each spring to their old nests under the eaves and raised their broods over the sleeping guards, and the nestlings grew up thinking of the still banner as simply how the world was. Then the briars closed over the eaves, and the swallows moved on to barns down the valley and told their children nothing, and the castle passed out of the memory of swallows, which takes longer than you might think. The seasons came in through the one place nothing could shut, which was the light. In summer, the sun worked its way through the briar leaves and small green coins, and the coins moved slowly across the floors of the sleeping castle all day, over the flagstones of the great hall, across the hands of the sleeping ladies, along the ledgers and the lutes, and nothing woke, but the whole hush of the house turned faintly green and gold, like a hall at the bottom of a summer sea. In autumn, the light came in lower and browner, and lay in long stripes down the corridors, and the sleeping castle smelled, ever so faintly, of ripe blackberries from deep inside the hedge, for a briar is a bramble at heart, and even an enchanted hedge cannot entirely forget itself. In winter, snow found its way through here and there, and lay in small, unmelting drifts along a windowsill, over a sleeping dove's back, in the upturned palm of the courtyard fountain, and did not trouble anyone. The cold came into the castle, but the sleep was warmer than the cold, and the sleepers slept on like seeds under a field, perfectly safe, perfectly kept. And in spring, every spring, 100 times, the light turned young again, and the green coins came back to the floors, and the whole mound of briars filled with the sound of bees, a deep, furred, contented hum, the exact sound, if you've ever heard it, of an afternoon with no edges, and the bees crossed and recrossed above the sleeping doves, and never one of them landed on the still feather in the kitchen, out of professional respect, perhaps, one small floating thing for another. And the nights, 36,000 nights, give or take, and every one of them kind. The moon did what the sun did, but silvered and slower, and on the clear nights its light came in through the briar leaves and small white coins where the gold ones had walked by day and crossed the same floors, the same sleeping hands, the same ledgers and lutes, so that the castle was read twice over, like a beloved page, once in gold and once in silver. Owls took the towers, generations of them, raising their solemn children above the sleeping guards, and their soft question went down the corridors at midnight, who, and was never once answered, and never once minded, which is the way of owls. Rain came in its seasons, and the castle heard it the way you may be hearing it now, far off and made entirely of hush, 10,000 leaves deep. And on the rainy nights, the sleepers went, if anything, a little deeper, the way sleepers everywhere do, and the whole hill, hedge and castle, king and cook, guards and doves, breathed together under the weather like one warm animal deep in its den, dreaming, safe, staying. The dust lay down, at last, everywhere. That is the deepest kind of quiet a house can hold, when even the dust has finished settling, and it lay on the great table like the finest gray velvet, and it dulled the copper pans to the color of old moons, and nobody minded, because dust, whatever the busy world says of it, is only the softest possible way for time to touch a thing. And the sleepers dreamed. The old tellers say the good wise woman saw to that she had folded pleasant dreams into her gift the way you fold lavender into stored linen, and the storyteller believes it, and will go further. She has always maintained that you can tell from how the tale ends what each of them dreamed. The king and queen, leaning crown to crown, dreamed one long shared dream of an ordinary day, a day with nothing in it but their daughter's voice somewhere down a corridor singing. The cook dreamed of a kitchen where every gravy behaved. The kitchen boy dreamed of whistles and of being, someday, forgiven. The horses dreamed of one particular meadow at one particular dusk. The hounds ran slow and happy through fields of sleep after hares of sleep that were never quite caught and never quite lost. The fire dreamed of the forest it had been long ago, green and rained on and full of birds. And Briar Rose, in her tower, in the slant of light that moved through 100 years, like one gold afternoon, dreamed the longest, kindest dream of all. And what it held, no teller has ever presumed to say, except that at some point far into it, there was a road in her dream, and on the road, still a great way off, someone was coming, taking their time, in no hurry at all, the way everything comes in this story. Sleep on, says the storyteller softly, to the castle, to the page, to you. Nothing is required of any of you. The wheel is turning by itself now. For out beyond the hedge, beyond the valley, beyond 3 rivers and a range of blue hills, in a kingdom that had not even existed when the spindles burned, a young man was saddling a horse. Chapter 10. The Hedge in Bloom. He was a king's son, and the old book tells us little else about him, and the storyteller has always thought that fitting, because this is not his story. He rides into it near the end, courteous and brave, does the one thing asked of him, and shares the last page. The best guests at any long sleep are exactly like that. They arrive at the right hour, they come quietly, and they bring the morning with them. He had come into that country by chance, hunting or traveling, or simply young and out to see the world, and he lodged one night at a farmstead in the valley below a certain hill, and in the evening, by the fire, he heard an old man tell the tale. The old man told it the way it had come down to him from his own grandfather, that under the great mound of briars on the hill there was said to be a castle, that in the castle a princess called Briar Rose had slept for near enough 100 years now, and with her the whole court, king and cook, horse and hound, fire and fly, that many young men had tried the hedge in the old days, and that the hedge had turned every one of them gently away, and that the wise had long since learned to leave the hill alone. The king's son listened with his chin in his hand and the firelight in his eyes, and then he said, quietly and not at all boastfully, which is worth noticing, I am not afraid. I should like to go and see the beautiful Briar Rose. The old man tried to talk him out of it as kindness required. He told him about the briars that braid themselves shut behind an axe. He told him of the proud young men who had cut all morning and ridden home by supper, no deeper in than the reach of their own arms. But the youth only smiled and thanked him, and banked the fire for him before bed, and in the gray of the morning he rode up the hill alone. Now here's the turn of the whole tale, says the storyteller, and it turns on nothing that he did. He carried no axe, he brought no army, he had made no vow and paid no witch. He was brave, yes, and his heart was in the right place, and none of that would have mattered one thorn's worth, except for this. On the day that he rode up the hill, the 100 years were done, the very day. The wheel had come full round, while the old man was still telling the tale, and the last night of the century had passed, while the young man slept at the farm, and the morning he rode into was the exact morning appointed by the 12th wise woman 100 years before, with the whole kingdom listening. "Sure as dawn," she had said. And here was the dawn. He smelled the hill before he saw it. Roses. 100,000 of them, opened all at once, red and white together, their scent coming down the morning road to meet him, like a tide of warm honey. And when he rounded the last turning and looked up, he did not see the wall of dark thorn the old man had promised him. There was no thorn to be seen at all. The whole vast hedge, top to bottom, tower height and gate wide, had come into bloom in a single night, and stood there in the young sun like a mountain made of morning, humming with its bees, and every rose on it was turned outward, toward the road, the way faces turn toward good news. He left his horse to graze. He walked up to the hedge, and the hedge opened, by itself. This is the part the storyteller asks you to keep, if you keep only one picture from tonight. He never drew his sword. He never so much as reached out his hand. The briar simply drew apart before him, quietly and courteously, the way a curtain is drawn by someone gentle, the roses leaning back, the great stems unweaving a doorway, and a green and fragrant corridor open before him, through the very heart of the hedge, floored with 100 years of soft fallen petals. He walked in, and behind him, without haste, the hedge closed again, not to trap him, but the way a door is closed behind a welcome guest, to keep the warmth in. He crossed the courtyard through the morning light. He passed the horses asleep on their feet, and the spotted hounds asleep in their circles, and he walked softly. He passed the doves on the roofline, every head beneath a wing. He passed the guards leaning on their spears, and he bowed to them, though they could not see it, because a sleeping soldier has still earned the courtesy. He stepped over the threshold of the great hall, past the gatekeeper's hand, resting all these years on the iron ring, and inside, in the brown and golden hush, he saw the whole court, the ladies over their embroidery, the steward over his ledger with its one small star of ink, the chamberlain against his pillar, the king and the queen on their bench, crowns tilted together, sleeping like children at the end of a long feast day. It was so quiet in that hall, the old book says, that he could hear his own breathing. He went on, up the stairs, along the corridors, past the kitchen door, where he paused and smiled, seeing the cook with his hand still raised over the boy, the storm still politely postponed, and the maid with her fingers full of feathers, and one gray feather resting on the air itself, and the fire standing golden and still, and the bubble in the pot waiting. And at the top of the oldest tower, up the narrow winding stair, where the light through the arrow slits slid over him coin by coin, he came to a little door, standing open now, and beyond it, in a slant of gold light, on a plain bed under a faded coverlet, he found Briar Rose. She was fresh as this morning. 100 years had not presumed to touch her. Her dress was of a fashion so old that he had seen it only in the portraits of his great-grandmother's day, and yet the roses in her cheeks might have bloomed with the hedge that very dawn. He stood a long while in the doorway, the way you stand at the edge of anything holy, and the dust motes hung about her like small still planets, and her breathing was the softest sound in a castle of soft sounds. The old book says that she was so beautiful that he could not turn his eyes away. But it was not only that, the storyteller thinks. It was the peace on her face. He had never seen anyone so deeply at rest, so perfectly safe, so entirely certain, even 100 years down, of being woken kindly, and it was the most natural thing in the world, and the gentlest, that he should stoop and kiss her. And the 100 years ended, not with thunder, with a breath. Briar Rose drew one long waking breath, the first new breath in that castle in a century, and her eyes opened, and they were awake at once, entirely, the way a person wakes from the best sleep of their life. And she looked at him quite sweetly, the old book says, quite sweetly, and not at all surprised. And when she spoke, her voice was warm and unhurried, like someone finishing a conversation begun long ago. "Is it you?" she said. "You have been a long time coming." For she had seen the road in her dream, remember, and someone on it, taking their time. Some tellers give her other words, and some give her none, only the sweet look. But those are the words, as the storyteller learned them by her own grandmother's lamp, and she has never wished them different. And hand in hand, with the morning pouring up the stair behind them, the two of them went down together into the waking house. Chapter 11. The Waking House. The castle woke the way it had slept, gently, evenly, corner to corner, and in the very same order, as though the sleep were a tide that had come in 100 years ago, and was now, with no fuss at all, going out. The king and the queen woke first, on their bench in the great hall, crowns still tilted together. They lifted their heads and looked at one another, and the old book says they looked at each other in great astonishment. But the storyteller has always suspected it was a very calm astonishment, the kind you feel on waking from a deep afternoon sleep in a chair, when the light has changed and the house smells of supper, and for one long, sweet moment you cannot say what day it is, and it does not matter in the least. The queen straightened the king's crown. The king took the queen's hand, and down the stairs into the hall, hand in hand, came their daughter, 15 years old and 100 years wise, with a young man beside her. And whatever 100 years may take, it had taken nothing that mattered, for the queen knew her child before her eyes had finished opening, and the space between the bench and the stair was crossed. And the storyteller will leave the three of them there a moment, in the middle of the hall, holding on, because some pictures do not want words on top of them. And around them, room by room, the whole house came back. The whole court woke and stretched, and looked at one another. The ladies in the solar lifted their needles and finished, each one, the exact stitch she had begun a century before, blue and gold, without a single thread the worse. The steward woke over his ledger, blinked at the little star of dried ink, sharpened his pen, and carried the figure forward, and the accounts of that kingdom, they say, balanced across the missing century to the last sack of barley, which is its own quiet kind of miracle. The chamberlain woke against his pillar, consulted the staff of office in his arms as if it might explain something, and decided, in the manner of chamberlains everywhere, to proceed as though everything were in order, which, for once, it entirely was. At the gate, the guards woke and straightened on their spears, and passed one look up and down the line, the look soldiers everywhere use, to agree that nothing will be mentioned. The gatekeeper woke with his hand still on the great iron ring, and turned it at last, and drew the gates open on a morning 100 years wide. The blacksmith woke mid-swing, and the hammer that had leaned against his shoulder all that century came down at last, but gently, a tap, and the anvil rang once under it, one small bright note like a bell for morning, and the blacksmith decided wisely that the first thing a new century needed was breakfast. In the laundry, The wide white sheets swayed on their lines again, and the laundry women woke standing among them, and the one who had been singing finished the low note she had held for 100 years, and went on into the next verse without dropping a word, so that the first song of the new age was the second half of a song from the old one, which is exactly as it should be. And high in the chapel tower, the bell ringer woke with the rope in his hands and pulled, and the great bell came down through its long postponed swing and struck, at last, the hour it had been holding all that time, one deep gold note that rolled out over the blooming hedge and down the whole valley, and the people in the fields below stood up from their barley, hearing a bell no living soul had ever heard, and every one of them knew by heart from the story, and before any rider could be sent, the whole kingdom knew. The 100 years were done, the hill was awake. Out in the yard, the horses woke and shook themselves, all down the stable row, a long soft thunder of manes, and put their heads out over the doors to see about breakfast. The hounds unwound from their circles, stood, stretched fore and aft in the manner of hounds, and wagged, sweeping 100 years of dust from the flagstones with their tails. The doves on the roofline took their heads from beneath their wings, all together, considered the morning, and flew out over the blooming hedge toward the open fields, 100 gray wings taking the new century lightly, as birds take everything. And the flies on the wall woke too, and walked on. The old book insists on them at the waking, just as it insisted on them at the falling asleep, and the storyteller loves it just as much the second time. Even the smallest and least regarded life in the house had been kept, all that time, safe as a coin in a pocket, and was now returned, complete, to its small important business of walking up walls. And the spider in the kitchen window woke at the center of her wheel, and walked her spokes once, testing, and found that 100 years had not loosened a single thread, which is more than most builders can say. In the kitchen, the fire woke first. The still golden flames leaned, remembered themselves, and leapt up merrily around the roast, and the roast took up its crackling in the precise middle of the crackle it had left off, and the bubble in the pot rose the rest of the way and burst, a small ceremonial pop, the first new sound of the new age. The gray feather completed its journey to the floor, landing softer than any snow. The scullery maid woke with her fingers full of feathers, and finished plucking the hen. And the cook's raised hand came down at last upon the kitchen boy's ear, but gently, whether the wise woman's blanket had softened it on the way down, or whether no anger in this world can hold its heat across 100 years of good sleep. The blow that had set out as a storm arrived as a pat, and the cook looked at the boy, and the boy looked at the cook, and what passed between them had a century of shared rest inside it. And the cook said only, "Mind the gravy," and the boy minded it, and that was the whole of the storm, forever. The storyteller has it on good authority that the two of them were fast friends from that morning on, and that the whistle was heard in that kitchen daily, and was even in time missed when it stopped. The wind stood up from the courtyard and went back to its work, and on all the trees before the castle the leaves stirred at once, a long green sigh, and the banner on the highest tower lifted and rippled and streamed out into the morning as though no century had passed, because for it none had. And the hedge, its promise kept to the last hour, loosened all that summer into an ordinary garden of climbing roses, red and white, that took the south wall a little more thoroughly every June, and never again grew higher than a gardener could tend. The wedding was held when the roses were at their fullest, and the old book gives it all splendor. But the evening of it, the part this room keeps, was not the loud kind. It was held at evening, in the courtyard, under the same striped awnings, or their descendants, where a christening feast had been held 100 years and 15 summers before. The whole kingdom came up the hill, the millers and the ferrymen and the beekeepers, the great-grandchildren of the guests of that first feast, and the tables ran the length of the yard, and the fountain, this time, was left to run with water, and the bees kept to the hedge, mostly. The musicians, waking players of a vanished age, tuned their fiddles and played the tunes they knew, every one of them 100 years old, and to the bride and the court they were simply the songs of home, and to the valley folk they were the loveliest old airs, heard once, long ago, from a grandmother's humming, and everyone danced to them just the same, the waked and the born, the past and the present, round and round the courtyard in the long gold light, and the line between the two kingdoms of time, which had stood on that hill like a wall for a century, came down for good over the course of one warm evening to music. At the high table sat 12 empty places, laid with 12 golden plates, in honor and in memory, and at the head of them a 13th place, laid just the same, with a plate of gold that the young king's son had ordered made before the wedding, first of all his works in that kingdom. No one sat there, but the place was laid, and the cup was filled, and the roses on that end of the table, the old folks swore, smelled sweeter than anywhere else in the yard. And Briar Rose danced with her father, and with her young man, and with the kitchen boy, who trod on her hem, and was forgiven before he finished apologizing. And when the stars came out over the courtyard, the fiddles slowed, of their own accord, into the old tune's oldest verses, and the dancing softened into swaying, and the children of the valley fell asleep, one by one, in the laps and against the shoulders of that whole gathered kingdom, and were held. They lived contented to the end of their days. That is the ending, as the old book gives it, and tonight of all nights, it needs no improving. Not happily ever after, though they were happy. Contented. It is a word with sleep inside it, says the storyteller. It is the word for a house where nothing is owed and no one is missing, and the fire is banked, and the doors are latched, and every ear in the place, at the day's end, is done with listening for trouble. And so it was, on the hill above the river, for the rest of their long and ordinary lives. Chapter 12. Goodnight. And the lamp at the edge of morning. The night is deep now, even at the edge of everything. Come and stand one last time on the hill above the river, years after the wedding, on any warm June night you like. The castle is dark and easy under the stars. The gates are latched, but kindly, the way a coat is buttoned on a child. The roses on the south wall are open to the dark, red and white, and their scent goes down the hill to the river all night long. And the bargemen on the late water pass through it, a whole minute of sweetness, and tip their caps to the hill, out of habit, out of love, without quite waking. In the stables, the horses are asleep on their feet, trusting their own bones to hold them, the way their great-grandsires slept through a century without one bad dream. The hounds are asleep in the yard, in their ancient circles. The doves are on the roofline, every head beneath a wing. The banner stirs on the highest tower, only just, like a sleeper's breathing. In the kitchen, the fire is banked under its blanket of ash, keeping tomorrow's warmth like a secret. It sleeps every night now, the fire, an ordinary night's sleep, and it is very good at it, better than any fire in any kingdom. It had, after all, 100 years of practice. The pots hang in their ranks, holding a little of the moon. The gravy, these days, behaves. And up the winding stair, the little room at the top of the tower stands open and swept and kept. Nobody sleeps there anymore, but it was never shut away, never bricked up, never made into a fearful place, because this kingdom, alone among kingdoms, is not afraid of sleep, and could not be if it tried. The spinning wheels came back to the country in the new king's time, and the spindles with them, and on winter evenings the cottages hum again from lane's end to lane's end, a soft wooden purring under the smoke, and mothers spin while the tale is told. The tale, the one about the hill they can see from their own doorsteps, and no child in that valley has ever once been afraid of the dark at the end of it. How could they be? In their kingdom, the dark kept everyone safe for 100 years, and gave them all back without so much as waking the flies. In the tower room, there is only the plain bed with its faded coverlet, and a jar that the gardeners keep filled with roses, red and white, and the slant of gold light that crosses the little room every afternoon, unhurried, the way it crossed a whole century. One long, kind afternoon that ended well. Let the hill go dark now. Let the river carry the stars downstream a mile and give them back, the way it does all night, an old game between old friends, and neither of them keeping score. And here, at the edge of everything, in the small quiet room where the lamp is burning, the storyteller turns the last page of tonight's tale and finds it is only the soft blank paper at the chapter's end, the page that is there, so the story has somewhere to rest its head. She looks over at you, the way a gardener looks at a bed at dusk. You have done everything right tonight. You came in and you sat down, and you let the blanket be heavy, and you let a very old story do its very old work. Perhaps you followed it all the way up the winding stair. Perhaps you drifted somewhere back among the golden plates, or the burning of the spindles, or the long green quiet of the 100 years, and the tale has been going on without you for an hour, comfortably, the way rivers go on, the way stars do. Either way is the right way. There is no wrong way to be near a story at night. And if sleep is close to you now, and it is, let it come the way it came to that castle. Not as a thief, as a blanket, corner to corner, forgetting nothing, refusing no one, gathering in the busy hands, and the raised voices, and the fretful small walkers on the walls of you, every last one, until the whole house of you is resting, and the wind lies down in your courtyard, and not one leaf stirs. You have the 12th wise woman's promise, the same as they had. It holds for everyone, everywhere, every night, and it has never once been broken. A waking at the end of it, sure as dawn. The lamp is very low now. The flame is the size of an almond, and it is in no danger of going out. It leans a little and rights itself, and goes on with its small golden work, which is the oldest work there is, keeping the dark kind. The storyteller's voice has grown very soft. The words have stopped being words. They are just warmth with a rhythm in it now. Like bees in a hedge of roses, far off. Like a wheel turning slowly in a high room, spinning something soft. Like someone humming in another room who will still be there in the morning. The storyteller closes the book, but slowly, the way a door is closed on a sleeping house. The lamp is turned low. Whatever became of them after, they are safe now, and so are you. The lantern will be lit again. There are more tales in the old book than there are nights in a year. Good night.